Land back, y'all. Good morning and land back. Welcome to the Booktrap. We out here reading the Black Jacobins, the last chapter, 13, with Chief Gazi and Chief Nas, political education and culture. Welcome, y'all. Come on into the room. You're gonna say hello to the people. Stop. She said she's tired today. She's tired today. She wants people to know that. Even Chief Gazi gets tired. Believe it or not. I make him coffee every morning with Snickers ice cream in it. It's real special. Land back, yo.
I'm just be like this the whole video. And then what Desaline did was
land back, y'all. Come on into the room. Share. This is our last episode on the Black Jacobins. I'm excited to have read this book finally. Good Lord, it's a classic. Even though the author be kind of.
Is it a classic?
Yeah, I think so.
What would you consider a classic?
I don't know.
I consider Gone with the Wind a classic. One of my favorite classics.
No one really wrote about this book. Is like from 1938. No one really wrote about the Haitian Revolution. Because I got my little rehab thingy for my chiropractor.
You're making me look short. We're the same height.
Anyway. Land back, y'all. Come on in the room. Make sure we're sharing this political education. We know that our people, our masses need revolutionary theory to guide revolutionary action. That's why we're here. This ain't just a book club. It's a book trap, right? It's got that class character of the colonized proletariat, which means that we're not just here to read theory, to talk theory. It's not some academic heat. You know, we out here to actually use it to apply it to our own concrete material conditions today. Why are you looking at me?
You do what you need to do. I'm doing what I need to do. I need to focus on my hair. You need to focus on the words that are coming out of your mouth. You do you, I do me. We work together. It comes together. It works great. Let's get back to the script.
You are not tired. You got all the energy in the world. Damn. Land back, y'all. Land back. I want people to come on into the room and share this before we get started.
Where is everybody?
For real.
I will go back to sleep. We read the book. Good night.
We read it. It's over.
Everybody died. Good night.
Everybody died. It's over.
Shoot.
Land back.
What y'all not going to do is mess up with
I'm going to start to share it in the first place. DM. If nobody else don't share it.
I need to get some vitamin E oil and some rose water in my hair ASAP. She is like, help me, Gazi. Help me.
Land
back, Solomon.
Welcome. Chief Alex.
Solomon, what do you think about me with my glasses on? She's still cute. She's still a cute little thing.
Let her know in the comments.
Let her know in the comments.
We here. Land back, comment, Toby,
love you.
Toby.
This ain't good. Girl, I know you want to show the whole bun, but you can't today. Whore. This mulatto bitch, go do the camera all like this just so that they can show they bun. And I'm over here like can't even be seen.
I just threw this together.
Do you see the contradictions in this? The contradictions still exist.
I didn't even notice. Does it look that good?
It don't. It really don't. It don't look better than my body, bitch. They need to see me.
I'm like unconsciously, I'm moving it back.
Don't touch it. I got it.
Land back,
you'll be there.
I'm trying to look for this live so I can share it. And land back.
Thank you.
Make sure you share with your comrades, share in your committee groups, share on Facebook, share it to your mama, share it to your cousins, share it to anybody who you think is interested in, I don't know, life on planet Earth.
Land back, y'all.
The crisis of white power, because that's what we're building. That's what we're fundraising for. This is a fundraiser if y'all don't remember.
Negro, stop touching the camera. You are being seen.
Let's just have it.
Oh, you doing your live cam shows for the white men's? I hope your mother's watching so she can know what you be doing to make money. He ain't no teacher, man.
Stop.
He ain't no teacher, man.
He ain't no teacher, ain't no kid.
There's a classroom, but he ain't no teacher, man.
Stop. Ooh, I almost did it again. What is that?
You just want to show your butt.
I really don't. I'm not interested in it. It's cool.
It's called not being worried
about show that bun.
Period.
Shit.
It's called not being worried about the dark-skinned nigga beside you.
Damn, I haven't taken any.
Rest in peace to Chala.
To
Chala.
Man bag. All right, let's get this party on the road, y'all.
Wakanda forever. Wakanda forever. Are y'all done
morning
crying?
in the Nas and Gazi home. Tough morning in the
Are y'all done crying? We're about to talk about real revolutionary African leadership. We're talking about real action movies. Y'all need to stop crying over this goddamn bad actor ass nigga with his bad motherfucking African accent. That nigga couldn't act his way out of a motherfucking paper bag, and you niggas, even cancer couldn't motivate that nigga. This nigga knew he was about to die, and he still couldn't act. And y'all crying over her. And the nigga always played sellouts. James Brown, sellout. T'Challa, sellout. All the rest of them sellouts.
I don't know if this comment is being sarcastic or not. This
It's
is definitely not a waste of time. This is probably entertaining.
It's definitely not.
Land back, y'all. I'm dead.
So let's read about some real revolutionary leadership. No, God, yes, Gazi. Yes, Gazi's telling the truth, Ishmael.
Don't tell Gazi no. Don't tell Gazi no now.
That nigga cannot act. We all knew that nigga cannot act. Y'all didn't even like him in the movie. We all know Killmonger stole the show.
That's true.
Give it to Michael B. Jordan. Now that he dead, give the role to Michael B. Jordan. I said what I said.
She said what she said.
Give the role to Michael B. Jordan. I don't want to see nobody acting as Black Panther. Give the role to Michael B. Jordan. God has his will. God said, no, T'Challa, you are not going to win. I want Killmonger to win. And now Killmonger going to play you. God had his will. Y'all can't question the Lord. Don't question the Lord. The Lord gave him to you, took him out.
Land back, yo.
All right, now we're going to start with real revolutionary Black leadership.
Amen. Amen. Yo.
Toussaint Dessalines.
Amen.
These Africans that threw themselves to fight for liberation and freedom and died.
Chief Ozzy, all the way from Nigeria, tuning in.
What's that message?
Let me turn this off. All right, y'all. So we're reading this chapter 13. It's the last chapter. It's a long chapter. Lots going on in here. It is called The War of Independence. So let's tap into that first page. If we could show that on the screen. Producer. And let's hop on into this. The War of Independence. So it says, the defeat of Toussaint in the War of Independence and his imprisonment and death in Europe are universally looked upon as a tragedy. They contain authentic elements of the tragic in that even at the height of the war, Toussaint strove to maintain the French connection as necessary to Haiti in its long and difficult climb to civilization. Convinced that slavery could never be restored in San Domingo, amen to that, he was equally convinced that a population of slaves recently landed from Africa could not attain to civilization by going it alone. His, y'all, I could not figure this word out. Tergiversations.
You didn't even want to look it up.
I don't even want to look it up. His inability to take the firm and realistic decisions which so distinguished his career and had become the complete expression of his personality as we watch his blunders and the inevitable catastrophe. We have always to remember that here is no conflict of the insoluble dilemmas of the human condition, no division of a personality which can find itself only in its striving for the unattainable. Toussaint was a whole man. The man into which the French Revolution had made him demanded that the relation with the France of liberty, equality, fraternity, and the abolition of slavery without a debate should be maintained. What revolutionary France signified was perpetually on his lips, in public statements, in his correspondence, in the spontaneous intimacy of private conversation. It was the highest stage of social existence that he could imagine. It was not only the framework of his mind. No one else was so conscious of its practical necessity in the social backwardness and primitive conditions of life around him, being the man he was by nature and by a range of intensity of new experiences such as is given to few. That is the way he saw the world in which he lived. His unrealistic attitude to the former masters at home and abroad sprang not from any abstract humanitarianism or loyalty, but from a recognition that they alone had what San Domingo society needed. He believed that he could handle them. It is not improbable that he could have done it. He was in a situation strictly comparable to that of the greatest of all American statesmen, Abraham Lincoln, in 1865. If the thing could be done at all, he alone could do it. Lincoln was not allowed to try. Toussaint fought desperately for the right to try. And then I do want to read this last little paragraph. It's important. It says, if he was convinced that San Domingo would decay without the benefits of the French connection, he was equally certain that slavery could never be restored. That's good. Between these two certainties, he, in whom penetrating vision and prompt decision had become second nature, became the embodiment of vacillation, like moving back and forth, not being stable. His allegiance to the French Revolution and all it opened out for mankind in general and the people of San Domingo in particular, this had made him what he was, but this in the end ruined him. Land back. What an intro into the chapter. It is true as can be that, unfortunately, right, just as much as Toussaint was committed to and fighting for and working in the interest of maintaining the freedom, right, of ex-slaves, he also was way too connected to this white power, colonial, liberal like idea of humanity, liberty, equality, and this idea of like European civilization as actually being advanced beyond, African civilization. And we were talking last night when we were reading about, like, I was asking, like, I put a little note here. Is it material restraints? Like, what is it that he's so tied down to this idea that they need the French? Like, is it about development, etc.? And what we were talking about is just like, at this point in time, right? Like this isn't 1965. This isn't even 1865. Like, this is, the late 1700s. There are no concrete examples like these. The African enslaved, people who revolted didn't have like legit had no history to be like consciously orienting their actions toward. So there really is this like situation of being, or it's like a situation where the bullshit that colonialism tries to say about our inferiority is is basically like bought into, because we don't have those historical precedents to rely on to see like the revolutionary power of ourselves, like completely independent of like European, I was gonna say effery, but we can't be swearing up on here. Yeah, so that's pretty tragic, like they said. Thoughts?
You right.
I'm back. Cool. So
anyone else, what did y'all think? I want to have a conversation. Did y'all read the chapter? What did y'all think about the last chapter? There was a lot going on. So basically what Manasseh said in regular human terms, I was going to say layman's terms, but then that'd be bad. Regular human terms,
I did not make it that complicated.
Terms that people can understand is that
criticism to make.
I'm just saying. Yes, Ishmael.
Never thought about what in that way.
You want Ishmael to chop a whole sonnet?
Mm-hmm.
Ishmael is obviously discussing that they never thought about it that way, about how Toussaint did not have any examples to reach on to know that our own African people had civilizations and things. So of course he would rest on white people as the ultimate examples of humanity, or what is humanity able to acquire. Thank you. I got you, Ishmael. I got you. So anyways, yes. Basically, long story is that, like, when we're reading this, you find like Toussaint is really slow in attacking like the French, and like French is like they come with the whole warships. They come on to the shores, start killing people already, start burning people already. There's letters coming out from. There's letters leaking from the ships saying that they are there to reenact slavery and all kinds of things.
Disarm the population, which is crucial, obviously, right?
And also the most important part is like to reenact slavery, and that's the thing that they don't want. You're welcome, Ishaya. So then but Toussaint was so slow at it and did not want to fight yet because Toussaint felt like he could win them diplomatically, like he's always won France historically, is to win them diplomatically, right? But at this point, it was not going to be won diplomatically. Like they were going there to reclaim the island at any means necessary. So Toussaint was like, fine, I don't know, da-da-da-da. Even when they took his children and then bargained,
tried to bargain with them?
Maybe. They took his kids and held his kids and was like, listen, you want your kids? You want your wife? Then be with France. And even then, he was thinking like kindness, sweetness, like we can win them politically, something like that. Like talk to them. And then what had happened was the Dessalines was like, man, fuck it, we about to fight. We have to fight. They acting crazy. So Dessalines started popping off. Toussaint came in late, started popping off. But by this time, the masses of the people of Haiti were left confused because the mulattoes went around and was like telling the people that Toussaint was against liberty and he wanted to work with the English. And that's why the French are here, because Toussaint actually is the one that is working with the enemies, and the English, want to reenact slavery. So they like try to turn people against Toussaint. So some of the people were joining up with the French military, fighting against the Dessalines and the people that were loyal to Toussaint, not knowing what was going on. So when Toussaint came into the game, he came into the game late, honey chair, and then Dessalines. But even though they came in late, they were still victorious. So like between him and Dessalines, they was really like ransacking them holes, whatever. And to the point that like Lecrac, which was the we're gonna call him Lecoq. Lecoq came from France to put the Africans back in slavery. And so Lecoq like met with Toussaint and was like, listen, Toussaint, let's have like a peace thing. I'm so sorry. I came here by mistake. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to fight you. I read the letter wrong. I'm sorry, girl. My reading skills is not the best. And Toussaint was like, oh, it's okay. I understand your reading skills is not the best or whatever. And then he was like, yeah, girl, I can't read. So meanwhile, though, he was writing letters to France like, haha, I got this nigga. I beat this nigga up so bad that he's quitting. He's bowing down to me. He's doing whatever I tell him to. Haha. He wasn't telling the people in France the truth, that he was actually getting his ass beat. Lecoq was getting, y'all say Lecoq in the comments, Lecoq. So Lecoq was saying he was winning, right, to France, and he was really getting his ass beat. And he gave up. To Toussaint was like, okay, so let's make a treaty. Let's make a peace treaty, whatever. So he was like, yeah, Toussaint, it was my bad. You don't even need your guards, Toussaint. Tell them to calm down. And Toussaint was like, yeah, you're right. And he was like, yeah, Toussaint, have your men go back home with their wives and chill, man, chill, go like it's. And he was like, yeah, you're right. He was like, it was a mistake. Toussaint went home. They was chilling. His guards was down, da-da-da. And then they marched up in that bitch, Lecoq, white ass, like the colonizer does, marched up in the ass, and with guns and all, and took Toussaint and his kids and his wife. And
they arrested all the black leaders, right?
Yeah, they arrested them at their home, and they was like, because they felt that Lecoq couldn't read, so that's what happened, and they believe that. So now Lecoq took that as, I got you. So but when they took Toussaint, like beat him up, they humiliated him, his wife and his kids. They stole all his stuff in his house. They put him onto the ship, and Toussaint was like, you might have cut at the trunk, but the roots grow deep of liberation in France. And then Lecoq sent Toussaint to France to go to prison, right? So then Lecoq was like, Okay, but what happened was, since they did that, the people started going mad. They didn't have no leadership because the generals, the leaders were all arrested and some were even killed. And so, but the people were riling up because they just knew, let's rile up. So they started burning down their towns, fighting and stuff. And Lecoq got so scared, child, and he was writing to France, and he was like, "Oh my God, my men are dying, da da da." But again, he didn't want to be embarrassed, so he started to blame a lot of the deaths on like the yellow fever or yellow fever, right? But it wasn't really like the yellow fever was ransacking them, but more than the yellow fever, it was actually like the Africans resisting against the French occupation, right, that was going on in there. But he couldn't write to that, so he was like, "Oh, send me more troops. These people are riling up, and this yellow fever is beating us up. The yellow fever more than the people rising up, but we need more troops. We need more troops." And so this nigga was like writing, like they would send him troops, send him money. He would ask for more troops, more money. Send him troops, send him more money. Ask, get more troops, more money. And meanwhile, like the Africans were like riling up. So Dessalines was in the cut, right? Which one? I struggle with that explanation as to why Toussaint was slow to engage the French battle. Toussaint did not connect his struggle to the other Africans across the Caribbean. This is in contrast to Zumbi, who connected all Africans in armed struggle against the Portuguese in Brazil. So like, yeah. So what like I was saying was Toussaint was gone. He was in the French prison right now, right? So the Africans was rising up. And then Lecoq basically, he died or whatever because shit just got so crazy. I think he got sick and died. I believe he got sick and died, but he died. I really was just Lecoq in his like letters of like, "Oh my God, somebody help me." And his like whining through the whole thing was just like super annoying. And like, it was just too much focus on that. Like, I didn't care. And then a lot of like what Lecoq was like writing was like lies. Like, it was just like, "You're lying." And it was like, so it's like, okay, whatever. Like, I'm getting over that. So then Lecoq died, thankfully, because I was tired of reading his letters. So Dessalines was basically waiting for like the French to galvanize the people in Haiti enough so he could strike. So Dessalines was playing to be Lecoq's like side nigga or whatever, right? And to do that, he had to kill other like Africans that were like resisting, which I ain't down with, but whatever, Dessalines. So anyways, Dessalines was doing that. And then when it was time to pop off, when Lecoq died, and like the and then they sent this new white person in, and the new white person came in and he started murdering like everybody, even the mulattoes that were helping the French. He started murdering them. He started doing horrific things like cutting their bellies open, having all these white people, the white people that were the good white people that Toussaint and everybody loved before, right? These good white people, they were about Africans being slaughtered.
Period. So exterminated. It was a whole campaign of extermination, like that colonial contradiction, right? I mean, you see the fate of these mulattoes. Like at the end of the day, they're these petty boo sellouts who still get exterminated by this white army. Like that's their fate.
Period. So like, so anyways, I just saw an ambulance, yo. So anyways, Dessalines or whatever was like, you see these white people, like damn, like these white people that were supposed to be so nice and kind during when under Toussaint, and they were like Toussaint's friend. They would have dinner with Toussaint. They were literally like killing African babies, taking African girls, digging them into the ground, having their head
insects, just all back to the same tactics of
the same slave tactics
violence that they was doing.
They would come around in like what's it called? They would come around in like stadiums and things like that, and they would make entertainment out of like cutting Africans' bellies open and having dogs eat them. Right. Like these same white people, like they were excited and thrilled, and they would see these Africans that they would respect and cheer, like, "Oh, you amazing African leader," and they would see them get like beheaded or dismembered and like just ravaged by dogs or gun bullets and things like that. And this was like this was fun for them, right? These people that see these white liberals, these white leftists, see while y'all crying over them white leftists that got shot and killed from Brother Kyle, Kyle, when they fighting each other, when the white left and the white right are fighting and killing each other, stay out of that. Stay out of that. Stay out of that. Ain't got nothing to do with you, baby girl.
Period.
So all y'all crying over them two foolish white leftists that you ran behind somebody with some AK, whatever. I don't be knowing guys like that. AK, whatever, a loaded gun. You running behind somebody, you hitting them with a skateboard and shit.
I'm sure they had a
whole POA for it. That's the white left, and that's where the white left will lead you.
Period.
Dead and dumb, bitch. Dead and dumb, bitch. So, anyways, thank goodness. Free Kyle. So, anyway. No, fuck all of them. But anyways, so basically, these white leftists were showing they true white skin, whatever, and this is what let Dessalines unite the island. Like, you see, this is what it's about. We've got to team up. We've got to fight them. We've got to overthrow this shit, right? So they were like, okay, fine, let's do that shit. So then they started doing
like
shit.
As you're getting into that, I think
I'm cussing so much. You have to stop me.
Oh, are you? I didn't notice.
Get those reparations and
go. Period.
Yeah.
When you're in those spaces, you're in those protests that we really shouldn't. But you know, when you're in those spaces and you see mostly white people, you see that our masses are not there. Clearly, the only thing to do is to catch your check.
Get reparations.
Get your check.
Go.
And GTFO for real. No, but I think it's important. Again, like the whole thing is that Toussaint like vacillated, right, or like was like shaky in actually arriving at the conclusion.
Going back to this question
at the conclusion, yeah, that like he needed to be that they needed to unleash, you know, like revolutionary violence, and it was like too late. I thought it was important. It said like there was a line in there on page 296. You don't got to show it just right, but it says, "War is a continuation of politics by other means," and Toussaint was now reaping the reward of his policy during the previous year. The laborers hostile to the French did not respond to his call. They could not understand why Toussaint should call on them to fight these whites when all his policy had been toward conciliation of them, right? But eventually he came to the conclusion like, wait a second, because they're coming in here to exterminate us, that he actually had to fight like that. And on page 299, the last paragraph, it says, Toussaint on February 8th did not yet know the full extent of his reverses. But as the blows fell upon him, he braced himself not for surrender, but for resistance. The dream of orderly government and progress to civilization, right? All these ideas that he had that, you know, props up French white society, says was over. He had held on to the last shred of hope for peace. But as he saw the enemy closing in, then and then only did he prepare to fight. Again, it was too late. Grievous had been his error, but as soon as he decided to look the destruction of San Domingo fairly in the face, he rose to the peril. And this, his last campaign, was his greatest. He outlined his plan to Dessalines. Do not forget, while waiting for the rainy season, which will rid us of our foes, that we have no other resource than destruction and fire. Bear in mind that the soil bathed with our sweat must not furnish our enemies with the smallest sustenance. Tear up the roads with shot, throw corpses and horses into all the fountains, burn and annihilate everything in order that those who have come to reduce us to slavery may have before their eyes the image of that hell which they deserve. So he finally on some like, yeah. It was too late. Events were to show that if he had but mobilized the masses before and purged his army, the French attack would have been crippled at the start. His desire to avoid destruction was the very thing that caused it, right? It is the recurring error of moderates when face to face with a revolutionary struggle. Land back.
So you read that for why?
For us to see how, again, like Toussaint was basically like hesitant in going all out and like mobilizing the masses to like, we need to full on destroy this army that's here to
see what? To see what?
The lateness, like him coming to the conclusion that coming to the conclusion that we have no other resource than destruction and fire was late, right? Like he was still holding out this, I don't know, hope for some type of thing working out with France. Like, and that's not like just an utter clash of civilizations. Versus Dessalines, who is like on that game from the beginning. So it says here on 301, it's talking about Dessalines. He ranged from one part of the island to another, wearing out the inhuman persecutors of his people. This old slave with the marks of the whip below his general's uniform, was fast coming to the conclusion at which Toussaint still boggled. Again, like Toussaint's out here vacillating. I think it's important because that's the whole like the thing is that he vacillated, like he didn't he wasn't sure from the beginning, and he would have been sure from the beginning if he wasn't so worried like throughout about like what's like what the French are doing versus like what his own masses are doing and ready for understanding or like united to. So yeah, Dessalines talks about, it says, as he ranged from one part of the island to another, wearing out these inhuman persecutors of his people, this old slave with the marks of the whip below his general's uniform was fast coming to the conclusion at which Toussaint still boggled. He would declare the island independent and finish with France. The old slave owners were everywhere grinning with joy at the French expedition. He would finish with everything white forever. Men, women, and children, indeed all the whites who came into his hands, he massacred. And forbidding burial, he left stacks of corpses rotting in the sun to strike terror into the French detachments as they toiled behind his flying columns. And that shit should have been done from the beginning, but it wasn't. Not bad.
So what you read that for?
The same purpose, to see how, like, again, Dessalines is like willing from the beginning to
tell people. Don't tell me. Tell the people.
I'm talking to the people.
Okay, deep in for the people.
I don't know what much there is deep in, like French or not French.
Tell them how you take it from a book to day life. What's going on politically? Sum it up.
We got to be like willing. We got to be willing from the very beginning to see and to mobilize against the violence that's been at the very core of like white society, plundering the colonized proletariat. And like, we can't vacillate on or like bet on the humanity of white people to like, yeah, we can't vacillate on that, because if you're unsure even just for a moment, that leads to like these massive massacres of our people, like it has historically and it will continue to do in the future. Versus Dessalines, who's ready to pile white bodies to like let them know that we're about the business. That's it.
Because power is absolute, ladies and gentlemen. You can't compromise with your oppressor.
Period.
So yes, and back to like Danny's comment. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have to understand the difference between like an explanation for an event and then explaining an event. You know what I mean? Like, you can say we agree that Toussaint should have connected the struggles of all African people, specifically like in the Caribbean where they were like resisting. We said that in the last book trap. But what we are talking about and discussing is the theory and ideology which leads to such actions. You feel me? So you have to put yourself as historical dialectical materialist. You have to actually look at the life of a Toussaint, what materially and what formed this theory, what formed this ideology, which diverted away from the revolution and caused it to fail, right? Because if you just focus on, he should have took this different tactic or this different tactic or this or whatever like that, like the book says, what is happening and occurring is birth of policies that Toussaint created, right? Because from your ideology and your theory is birthed tactics and strategies, right? That's where it comes from. So we are saying what birthed the ideology and theories of a Toussaint is being an African slave, right? With no connection to or understanding the history, the true history of African people. So even when Toussaint was talking about civilization or civilizing Haiti, right? And rising the people up to be a well-rounded human being. His vision of a well-rounded human being was a French person, right? A white French upper class person. And he, not employed the people, but basically created systems within Haiti for the African people to adopt
like mirror
ways of the white upper class French people, which was his what's it called? Total like view of what the best human could be, right?
Mhm.
And even with white people doing slavery on African people, all of these things, he didn't see that. And he invested, and it shows in here through his letters, he invested more into the, like this comrade said, into the appeasement or kindness or heart of white people, the image of what white people say that they are, right? The image, the promises of the white liberal. He invested into the white liberal, the white left, right? That they were the way out of this, that he saw that we're the same, like our liberty, your liberty, like we're the same. You see that all the time. You see that in these organizations with these black leaders in these organizations, but they're white-led organizations, right? These organizations of socialists, these organizations of communists, these organizations of anarchists, of Antifa, whatever, these white left organizations that are led by white people. And you see Africans to this day tying themselves to that. What ties themselves to that, right? What ties themselves to that is most likely most of those black people were raised around white people. Like all these black people, I know this black person that's in what's the DSA, whatever, with the rose, whatever.
DSA.
Yeah. And this nigga is as dark as night, but his mind is as white as pus. Okay, white as mayonnaise. Okay. And it's because like he's been raised around white people all his life. So this is dialectically, like that is what has been forming, right, his ideology and theory, right? It's just not good just to be black, right? And Toussaint was a slave, right? But Toussaint was a well-educated slave. He was a slave that did more of the work around setting up the dinner table and at hotels. He works at hotels and stuff like that. So it was that. And what was the books that Toussaint was reading? Toussaint read about revolutionary books of white French revolutionaries. Was they French?
I think so. It was like Abby something. They kept talking about Abby.
Yeah, that
Sounds
read those white left revolutionaries. So he did white left shit. Period. He did white left shit.
And literally the white left is out here like these new poor working class white people in France are like fighting for Napoleon's army, quote unquote, thinking that they're like part of this revolution. And there's some quote in here about how they're like, while they're fighting, they hear the black soldiers like singing their, revolutionary songs, and they have some question about like, is justice on their side type of thing. Like these niggas.
And that did not occur.
You said what?
I said that did not occur.
What?
Like the person was writing like, oh, when the white soldiers came,
right, like
they were hearing those songs and like, oh, it's just like those white soldiers knew exactly what they were going to hate.
You have to go to a colony of the white country that you're coming from,
like,
to go fight.
Not even that. You're going to a colony that you literally genocided and wiped out the indigenous people, replaced it with African slaves, forced them, and now you are coming back to enact and reclaim. It was very clear why those soldiers were coming to Haiti. It was no tying to revolution. It was straight up, this is Haiti's colony, and we were reclaiming it.
Right.
And even the leaders on the ships were saying like, we have conquered countries in the Nile and in Arabia. We're not gonna let these nigger slaves be able to defeat us. Like it was very clear that this was a colonial war. This was a war of imperialism, right? It was very clear for those soldiers, very clear for the white people.
I think this
wasn't clear for us,
right? And the author CLR James definitely has that type of like sympathy,
and he fucked up because his last thing in the book, right? He literally laid out all these contradictions of Toussaint not seeing the whole long term, and this dummy CLR James says that the next leader of Black Revolution are going to be people that read fucking Trotsky and Lenin, Trotsky and Marx or whatever. Trotsky and Lenin or Trotsky and Marx. But yeah, you didn't see the contradictions of us leaning on white fucking leftism before. So you literally laid it out like, Toussaint did not get this, and Toussaint did not get that, and Toussaint did not get this. But y'all should read the same kind of shit Toussaint was reading from these white people to get to the same motherfucking conclusions, bitch.
True. He
That'll make no sense.
He did say that.
That'll make no sense. I keep cussing. I'm so self-critical. I'm gonna get better at this. But any which way, y'all. That is why we formed Black Hammer as loves Trotsky. That's right. CLR James loves Trotsky. So that's why we at Black Hammer, we say as colonized people, we must reach from our own colonized ideologies and theories and experience with white power because we understand white power, capitalism, imperialism, colonialism more than anybody. And so our theory is more informed more than anybody.
Literally,
and Marx and Lenin
like,
and none of them.
It's our bodies that face the sharpest, daggers of colonialism, and that's what informs us in the first place. So when we say anybody, literally, we mean of all the bodies on planet Earth, which ones have that like innate, knowledge of the violence of colonialism, and thus like the at least the position, with the right orientation, the right revolutionary thinking, and the right like leadership from among our own masses to actually get us out, get that dagger out of our bags. We know it.
I mean, look at these niggas, these same black people that's following these white left organizations. They was just writing Bernie Sanders peen balls.
Straight up.
And Bernie Sanders and we as Black Campers said, F Bernie Sanders, F Bernie Sanders, F Bernie Sanders, F Bernie Sanders. And what did Bernie Sanders come out to say? That he is against defunding the police. But that's what white people care about, right? But these white leftists didn't care that Bernie Sanders said no to reparations. Period. That was enough for us to know who this mother sucker is, right? So we literally summed it up already. We are always right because we understand colonialism better than any of these people do, right? We understand it. We literally said, okay, y'all got to back away from these protests because it's becoming really white and it's becoming really cray-cray and it's a white left, white right fighting. That is not our business. And what happened? Niggas is pulling out guns, shooting each other, da-da-da-da-da-da. Like these white folks is taking each other out. Like we need to be more into our communities, y'all. We need to be more we need to be present into the day-to-day lives of our people. And that's what we do, period. So yes, any which way though. Toussaint even like in prison, like wrote and like pleaded to go to court to plead his case that he has been faithful to France because the whole thing was they were saying that Toussaint was canoodling with the British, but there was no proof of that, right? They really just wanted Toussaint out because Toussaint was able to organize and militarize the island to have self-defense capacity so that their self-determination could not be disturbed. And that was the issue. And Toussaint could not understand that because they were telling him lies, right? They were like, you're here because you're canoodling with the British. And he's like, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. And they were asking him like, and he refused to even talk to them about what was going on. Like he didn't out none of the people on the island. He didn't tell them their tactics. He didn't tell them none of those kinds of things, right? And so even though he was still pleading with the white left in that way, he did not sell out his people. He never used his connection to the people as a way to get out of prison. He never was like, hey, if you let me out, I'm gonna go to that island. I'm gonna tell everybody to calm down. He wasn't even. I'm gonna get you the best leaders and that you can lynch them. Like he did not sell out. He literally just said, "Take me to court so I can talk to y'all." Still a bad move, but still he was like, "Take me to court so I can talk to y'all about why I did not sell out to the British." I
was gonna say he wasn't even connected. Like Dessalines hasn't at that point even wasn't like united with him in his leadership. It says, but his eyes fixed on the French, he did not know that he had lost the confidence of Dessalines, who was no longer looking to him for leadership, but was working out his own road to independence. Like you see these, they're not like united.
You went back in time. I'm talking about Toussaint in jail. Now you going back in time. Okay, when Toussaint lost the so Manasseh is talking about before Toussaint went to prison. That Dessalines separated from him and he could not see that.
True. I'll be lost in time.
Time's not real.
It's confused with what's going on.
Don't you hear? But anyways, what questions y'all got? Let's talk about, we can talk about the whole book now. Toussaint died in prison. They basically, they didn't starve him to death. They mistreated him to death. Yeah, it got really cold and they basically had him like freeze to death or whatever. And so he died and it was horrible, horrible death.
But the insurrection's still going on in Haiti.
Yeah. So then like 7 months after his death, Haiti wins and they call it Haiti. Also, CLR James doesn't detail why they called the island Haiti. They call the island Haiti after It's actually pronounced Ayeti, after the people of Ayeti that were there before it was colonized. Before the island was colonized, it was named Ayeti, and the people, and that was the name of the people. So, in remembrance of the genocide of the people, the original people of that island, they named it Ayeti, which is very beautiful and really significant part of the revolution, that they, as Africans, were uniting with the anti-colonial struggle of indigenous people as well, and understanding that our struggles were tied, right?
I think it speaks, it speaks to the way that this revolution really is a revolution of the colonized proletariat. Just like in our unity as African and indigenous peoples. That is so
and powerful. Also, what CLR James didn't say was that in the Constitution, they put that if any African slave came to the island of Haiti, that they were free. I forget what it was, like wet foot, dry foot, something, wet foot, dry land, or something like that.
Yeah, and it's ringing a bell, but I don't remember the details.
I think it was like called wet foot, dry land. And basically that it stated that Haiti told everyone, all the Africans in the islands and the Africans in America, that if you come to Haiti, like you are free. You are free. You will have land. We will make sure you have housing. We will make sure you have a job. Like all those things were like laid out, and which connected the island to the mass struggles of the people, which I don't know if that was laid out by Dessalines or Toussaint first, because I know Toussaint was responsible for that. Like, if you fight for Haiti, whatever, you are Black. Like, no matter if you're white, mulatto, Black, once you have fight for Haiti, you're Black. And that don't sound like a Dessalines thing. That sounds like a Toussaint thing. Yeah, but the wet foot, dry land, I can't remember if that's Toussaint or Dessalines. But if it is Toussaint's, shout out to Toussaint for seeing the connection of all African struggle. But it's Dessalines, shout out for seeing the connection to all African struggle. So through that, you even see that our 4-point platform, is inspired by those acts, right? When people think like, why does Black Hammer is an organization of all colonized people? It's because of great revolutionary leaders like Dessalines, that after they have resurrected and revamped their revolution and have regained their freedom, that even after all this carnage that they have faced, they have decided to name the island Ayeti after the indigenous people, right? That connection, right? Why do we say that that it doesn't matter, these borders don't matter, right? It's because of revolutionaries like the Haitian revolutionaries that said that, any African that comes on this land, well, they didn't say African, any Black that comes on this land is a free Black, right? That will get housing, stuff like that. They didn't care about those freaking borders, right? So yeah, it's super important. And then, like, why do we say that all the problems are colonialism and those neo-colonial sellouts? All these problems that the island was facing was due to colonialism and neo-colonial sellouts. So we make it clear for the people who our enemies are and what they are about, so they cannot use that shit against us. So anybody tying themselves to France is a problem. Britain is a problem. United States is a problem. The only people we would tie ourselves to is the person that's tying themselves to the liberation and self-determination and liberation of the people, right?
I think that fourth point, a big lesson for me is that fourth point of unity too, about the colonized proletariat are the only true proletariat. And it's only through our leadership that white power, colonialism, capitalism, imperialism can actually be destroyed. And we see how, like, Toussaint was tied to the masses, right? But there was still that error in kind of unity between that colonized proletarian leadership and those masses, right? Like, you can't just, like we really laid out in the last I think it was in the last Booktrap, like, you can have even all the right revolutionary theory, even, right, and be in that leadership even of the colonized proletariat, but if it's not connected to and united to by those masses, like, there's the machine don't work. It doesn't push. The spear doesn't, you have the sharp head of the spear and you got the butt of the spear, but it's like it's not screwed on or however the hell it gets connected, tight enough to really through white power.
So what
Was a good
lessons?
angle.
So now that we
Wow.
finished this book, Benance, what lessons have you learned from this book?
Ooh, the petty boo is trifling. The petty boo be trifling. And they be constantly like seeking to, like the petty boo do, like sell out the long-term interest of the masses of their people for the short-term interest of a bullshit like colonial system that tries to give these little crumbs and privileges and tries to give these ideas about integration into, you know, humanity. Yeah, and how like decisive that is too, because it went they would just go so back and forth between like supporting and uniting with the masses of, you know, enslaved or former enslaved Africans, fighting against the British, fighting against the French, fighting against the Spanish, versus siding with them to fight for some type of compromise, to like be a tool for white power to basically you know, halt and truncate the development of that revolution to like greater ends, meaning like a greater like fulfilling of trying to build something that represents, again, the interest of the masses and not the interest of like a small sector who can get a couple you know, a couple coins, a couple points, even too, to like try to act like, you know, oh, we'll get in there in order to, you know, slowly inch forward some type of, right, because like when they slowly inch forward to something that eventually has to do with the masses. I know they talked about a lot like the mulattoes being kind of almost indifferent, or like, again, it was just a lot of vacillation, like a lot of shakiness with being indifferent to whether or not slavery was restored, being like, okay, well, I guess, yeah, we don't really want it, but like it was all, their mind was all about the short-term interest, and it like moved them at times, oftentimes, yeah, to like complete unity, or sometimes it moved them even in their short-term interest of, oh, we don't want to die, like to unity with the masses. But that unity can't be based on your own short-term interest of like survival, you know, when shit hits the fan, it's like, okay, never mind. Like it's got to be forged with those long-term interests in mind, and like understanding that your short-term interests are
number one, lessons don't align with the wise.
Period. True.
Period. We have Sia that said Christina that said assimilation is the demise of the masses, regardless how good you are at it. Period. And then we have Sia saying, can we connect this to the current political and economic situation to Haiti today? Very much so. It's the same resistance that is going on. The reason why Haiti faces so much atrocities is based on the fact that white power imperialism does not quit. Like they are always going to fight. Like even the Vietnamese struggle did not end once America like left. They'll put their treaties on you. They'll create coups inside your own nation. They'll try to assassinate your leaders still, poison your leaders, do all kinds of things, right? I mean, look at Haiti now, right? That America went into and literally robbed Haiti by gunpoint and took like all their gold, right? Haiti suffering with viruses that literally the UN knowingly, not the UN, was the UN and Red Cross, like knowingly brought to them, right? During the earthquake, the Clinton Foundation and the Red Cross basically like teamed up to go into Haiti and steal everything that they could.
And somehow they still be summing it up as y'all owe us. That literally a formerly enslaved colony that fought for its independence against a colonizing force that's entire purpose
France
is to
this day still says that Haiti owes them reparations. Like to this day, France says that Haiti owes them reparations. You know, that French, president that y'all be like, oh my God, he's so cool. He's hanging out with Rihanna. That nigga. And still to this day do things to make sure that Haiti can never rise up. They wanted to make an example for African people around the world that if you rise up, it like this is what you're not capable of creating a real self-sustained nation, but we gotta rise up in the ranks. That can like rise. They don't want an example of actual Black revolution that can actually create and sustain life and have this like
exactly,
existence of an example of, hey, we resisted, we fought, and look how amazing we're living now, right? They don't want that anywhere. Like you see even in Venezuela, when we saw the documentary in Venezuela, like they won that revolution, but it's always a fight. And that's why we say a socialist nation cannot exist in a capitalist sea, right? There is a sea of capitalism that is always going to be fighting at that, trying to destabilize that, trying to undermine it always. Like you will never get off of their action item list, right? that resisted country, that country that resisted and won, will always be on the action item list to destabilize that country, to make that country unable, right, to feed its people. Even they will starve the people, they will do things in a way to turn the people against the revolution,
and
right?
Push a bunch of propaganda that makes it completely erases again the colonialism that is responsible for that. This is exactly what we were just saying. As long as colonialism exists, no colonized nation can be liberated because they would never let us breathe, right? That's why we need to unite the colonized proletariat, of colonized nations, African, Asian, indigenous, across the world over, to really once and for all address this colonial contradiction. We build off of the struggles that are obviously important and like obviously materially significant in pushing us pushing that revolution forward, but we understand that the colonial contradiction, like it was not fully overturned in this revolution. Like clearly colonialism continued to exist, but these revolutions still like provide a
South African Azania, white colonizers got reparations under the neo-colonial government. Yes, like y'all, it's like you got to take it all the way. Like, don't do this if you think you're just gonna etch out a little space. You got to be able to take it all the way, and that's why we created Black Hammer,
and why we're building Hammer City.
Period.
Right, and we're not just trying to have one Hammer City. We're trying to have Hammer Cities across the globe, right, as a base for us building this revolution and struggling against all of the contradictions of white power, of building up a new, colonized, soon to be decolonized nation, of indigenous, proletarian,
white slave owners in America got reparations too, y'all. I don't know if y'all know that, but white slave owners after the Civil War got reparations. But did Black people who fought get anything? Like who fought and died get anything? Rosa Parks ass, not Rosa Parks.
I can't.
Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman ass who joined the North and fought against the freaking South, right? They gave her $20. Her husband died. Her whole husband died. And the only thing she got was $20. Like, please, that's why engage, like, to the niggas that fought for the North, y'all was foolish. We thank you for your services. We know how not to be dumbasses. We do not pick a white side. There's no white side to pick. There's no white side to pick.
Period.
And y'all mad because Kanye said that what's her name? That Harriet Tubman just gave Africans took Africans to a new slave. Y'all mad, but it's kind of true. It's kind of true. Like, these white liberals of the North wasn't fucking with us.
True.
And still ain't fucking with us. Are we still colonized? Are we still enslaved? Yes. It's okay to criticize the heroes of the past and to know their contradictions so we don't do it again. I'm not saying that Kanye West is a motherfucking revolutionary. He's a sellout coon ass nigga that people say, oh, he's struggling with mental illness, but his mental illness never leads him to say nothing crazy about white people's heroes.
Weird.
But he always want to say stuff about Black people's heroes. So he ain't crazy. So anyways, he ain't that crazy. But yeah, like, to sum it up, like, what was we fighting with the North for? For real though.
A new phase of colonial capitalism.
Period.
That's it.
Just a new phase of colonialism, capitalism. That's right, when I say. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed reading the book with us.
Yeah,
it was a great book. We have a new book coming.
Yes, we do. Next week, we got Chief's Hash and Chief Isma are going to read Layla Khaled's autobiography, My People Shall Live. I'm super excited. They're going to tear it up. We're going to read probably like the intro. I believe we're going to read the intro to...
The intro to...
Anyway, we're gonna read Layla Khaled's "My People Shall Live," the intro to chapters 2 next week. So join us in for another round of the Book Trap. We going around the world, book trapping around the world, learning about the anti-colonial struggles and lessons to be learned from our ancestors, so that we can continue to sum up, the science of revolution, the science of anti-colonialism, to apply it in the laboratory of, the crisis of white imperialism that's going on right before us. We got plenty to learn, plenty to sum up, plenty to apply. Hammer City is the thing that we are doing to build revolution.
This was a hard book to get through.
It was.
CLR James, you're so boring,
honestly, and too many quotes from letters from French.
Oh my God!
But anyway.
Shoot.
Yes, Hash and Ismat, they're gonna kill it. It's gonna.
Dessalines ain't wrote no letters.
Period.
Dessalines ain't wrote no letters.
Like 10 pages. That's okay. Anyways, we done. That's all right. Y'all, BuildHammerCity, donate. And when you donate, please. Ooh, I did it again. When you donate to CashApp, Venmo, and GoFundMe, it's BuildHammerCity. Please make sure you put Booktrap in the comments so that we know we can calculate and do our science and on what shows are working and all that good stuff. So
thank you, Sia. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Ishmael. Thank you, Solomon, for staying to the end.
For real.
Everybody that stayed to the end. Woo, child. This is my first time doing a book trap. Yes, girl.
Really?
The girl stays busy.
Wow, it's my first time too.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
No, you did a book trap. You didn't do the whole thing, but you.
Oh, I did the Michael X one reading. I did an amazing reading. It was my debut.
Was that the only one? I think you stepped in for people before when they failed.
You know me. I was here to pick up my comrades.
But yeah, this was my first one.
It was great. I really appreciate it.
It was great. I don't think I'm going to do it again, but it was great.
Slam back, y'all. I feel like there was something else I was going to say to wrap up.
Hash and Ismail are about to do an amazing job. Also, before we leave, I want to say that yes, we say like Toussaint and Dessalines and all these like great African revolutionary leaders. Like even it says Toussaint Louverture and the San Domingo Revolution. And I just want to say that the real significance for me, the real heroes for me were the nameless Africans that rose up and were like murdered, right? There's a story in here of 3,000 or 5,000 Africans just marching towards like cannons being blown at them and them just declaring like, this is the fight. This is the fight. Forward. Did you find the quote?
Yeah, it's somewhere. It's powerful. They were also talking about similarly in that whole like,
don't take my point to somewhere else. Shush.
It was
shush. And so the real leaders and the heroes for me.
Hey, we got $100.
Oh, thank you,
Daniel. Appreciate that.
So like, the real revolution for me. Okay, so they said to the attack, grenadier. Who gets killed? That's his affair. Forget your mom. Forget your pa. To the attack, grenadier. Who gets killed? That's his affair. Yeah. And they were saying that over and over again. Thousands of them marching. 2,000 of them voices marching and fighting, right? Just grabbing whatever.
Blown away.
Men, women, children fighting and to their death. To the African women, the elderly women would look at the other black women the young black women before they're about to be hung. And they would say to them, don't you cry, be happy that you will not have to birth slaves, that you will not have to birth slave children. Be happy. And they would smile and beam and say to death. And one African teenager said, oh, y'all don't know how to die. And he said, with liberty, and he jumped into the fire and the fire bursted on his body. And he said nothing and just looked at them in these daring eyes, like, you cannot kill us. Like, you cannot kill us. Like, we are going to always fight you. You will never win. And this death, this form of dying is so beautiful and great and gives me dignity more than a life of slavery, right? And that these were the real heroes. The thousands and thousands of nameless Africans that did this, right? You had African women that they would push the person that was about to lynch them and they would take the rope themselves and they would say something amazing and say to liberty and jump and lynch themselves. Like they would push the executioner away and do it themselves. They were so daring. There was one where they showed this other African man that was being attacked, and his limbs were being torn off.
Yeah,
he was laughing at the dogs and yelling at the people.
They literally said he threw his arm, like these dogs are ripping off his limbs, and he goes, you know, here you go. Like just the power of, I mean, it's obviously tragic as hell, but it's also such a like mind blowing, but not even, I mean, that's the power of our people. That's the power of our struggle. Like the fact that we're still here today is a testament to, like, given the violence, we know the atrocious violence of colonialism. You know, like there's really no other, you couldn't have had another, like our people couldn't have been anything but that type of resilient for us to continue to.
And I don't believe like we take enough focus for that. Like even in this writing, he was talking about the significance of the people, but he never really, like, you centered the people at the beginning of the experience of the slavery. And then you say how they were courageous at the end, but it wasn't this focal point of the people, of the masses. And but we're not going to make that mistake. And I wanted to end this with this part that the war could not have been even won if it wasn't for one person, another nameless person, an African woman. Where is it? But I thought I marked it. I'm pretty sure I marked it. But the one that told Dessalines. No, I marked it. I know I marked it. Hold on. This lady said that. Oh, I think it was later. I marked it. Lord knows I marked it. The Lord, my Lord Jesus knows I marked it. Come on, Lord. I know I marked it. Hold on, y'all. Be patient with me. It's really good. Okay. So Dessalines, as we know, this war, this resistance needed Dessalines because they needed a leader, right? But Dessalines almost got taken out. And it was because of an African servant woman. And she was serving Dessalines at this spot. And what Dessalines didn't know was the spot was about to be surrounded by the enemies, because this is when they were going to take Dessalines, right? And she, looking hard into his eyes, she pressed her elbows to her side and then moved them backwards, a sign that he was going to be bound. And that is when Dessalines took up his gun, got on his horse and left and was shooting and said, to arms, to arms. And that saved him. That single act of the masses saved him, which saved the people. You know, like she is our hero as well. Like she needs to be praised as well. And all of these nameless masses. So rest on them. Rest on them.
I'm thinking back to right to the very beginning of the book, you know, when it talked about the women and the children dancing like in the forest and singing their songs to and that like force of culture that helped like boost up the morale of the you know, African soldiers fighting. Like that shit matters. Like that shit has a.
And then you totally understand why they have to keep us divided, because when the island was united, the mulattoes, the blacks, the men, the women, the children, the elderly, when they were all united, this united thing, it was impossible to defeat them. And of course, they want to split African men and African women. Like, did you see how the women played this? The old African women would be marching, traveling and taking messages across. And sometimes they would get beaten to pulps and they would never snitch. And they would go and they would laugh that they were beaten so much, but they didn't get killed so they can pass their message. It was just really beautiful. And that's why we as African and colonized people, that unity has to be so important to us, because with that, they cannot defeat us. So just rest on those amazing, amazing heroes, the masses of the people that rose up. And the masses that did that weren't even under Dessalines. A lot of those attacks and things like that wasn't even directly under Dessalines' leadership. These were just the masses springing into action, right? Even those 2000 and stuff like that. That wasn't Dessalines' leadership. Those were the masses. Those were the masses. And
self-propelled.
And that put such fear into the whites that they said, we can't win this, and they left.
Straight up. Remember the masses, y'all. Remember the masses. They are the makers of history. That's why we unite with the leadership of the colonized proletarian masses to take this thing to the end. You want to read this favorite song at the end? I want to try it.
Yes.
We could try it. All right, ready?
Hey, bomba, hiu,
kanga bafiote, kanga mune dele, kanga dokila,
Congali.
That means we swear to destroy the whites and all that they possess. Let us die rather than fail to keep this vow, y'all.
It's probably Congali.
That's all right. Death to white power, y'all. We out here building it up. Hammer City. Check it out. Donate. Follow us. If you remember, I'm gonna see y'all. We gonna see y'all at the Forge and the Hammer today. Speaking of, we're studying mass work.
Today?
The importance. Yep, today, 3 p.m. Girl. How you about to stay down all night?
I ain't coming. I'm just playing. I'll be there with bells on.
It's like mandatory political education. We're gonna be talking about mass work, right? That's all about what we were just talking about. The importance of connecting with the masses, unity with the masses, leadership of the masses, by the masses, for the masses.
Yes, Brandy. It's beautiful. Brandy Lynn. Oh, I love that name.
All right, y'all. Land back. We'll see you next week for the book trap with
Solomon.
Chief Isma and Chief Hash. They're gonna kill it. It's gonna be great.
Y'all coming to the Forge and the Hammer. I'll have more energy.
Keep donating. Keep donating.
Which hand you put?